trouble logging in, so we may need to change the running order a wee bit. Thomas from CoDel, are you here? Has Thomas arrived?
Yes, I am here. I've also
Ah,
struggled
perfect.
to get in, but I am in.
Okay. So I think what we might do, so it looks like we don't have Sheena, is if Thomas, if you're happy to maybe go first, and then we'll have Tara from Uist. And then what we'll do, because we have a fair few speakers, what we're going to do is kind of split up the Q&A a wee bit so that any burning questions for the first two speakers can get asked earlier on. And then we'll have Hayley and Korey from Dumfries and Galloway and Sam from Inspirabla. And then there'll be a longer sort of 25-30 minute Q&A networking session at the end. And obviously we can bring in Sheena as and when she manages to get in. So I think the only other thing to say is that we've actually put together a very quick survey, which I'll post the link to in the chat. And if you are involved in the sort of running of a village hall or community space, it'd be really good if you could just take 2 minutes to complete it. What that does is just help us inform future sessions. In particular, in March, there'll be a meetup during Village Halls Week. And the theme of Village Halls Week is health and well-being. So that's a very broad theme and covers lots of different things. So it'd be great to get some feedback from you guys as to where you might like to focus that session. And yeah, a few other kind of general questions as well. So I'll put a link in the chat at some point through the session, and you can offer your feedback there. So I think now I'll shut up and I'll introduce Thomas, or he can introduce himself. Thank you, everybody.
So thank you, everybody. I'm really sad that Sheena isn't here to launch the event, because I think a really concrete example of a village hall doing something fantastic for young people would be a lovely way to start this session. I can't do that in the same way, but I'm going to place it in a broader context. So it's really amazing to see so many people. I mean, I've got 66 people, it says at the bottom, which is just amazing for this event. So I hope you get lots of inspiration from it. Now, what I'm going to try and do, so my name's Thomas Fisher from CoDel, based in Uist in the Outer Hebrides. And I'm going to try and share my slides. Hopefully this will work. That's me, and talking about community spaces and young people, very much in conjunction with Tara, who will be presenting also from Uist. We'll do two different focuses for this. So the good news, to start in the broader context, we're talking about young people, and particularly young people in their beyond school. I think that's important, that is the focus for us just at the moment. Those are young people in their 20s. For Islanders, we also include those in their 30s, because some young people will return in their early 30s, for example. So the good news is many young people want to stay or return, as surveys repeatedly find. Now, HIE has done a lot of surveys, and young people have repeatedly told them, we would like to stay or we'd like to return if we could. And indeed, young people are returning, and they are staying in many rural and island communities. We've collected evidence since 2018 across many communities to substantiate this. So, a couple of examples. Barra is booming with young families filling schools. They were due to close one of the two primary schools. They can't, because the first one is full. In Dumfries and Galloway, we advertised for young researchers when we were doing our depopulation research, and we got a lot of highly able young applicants. Hayley and Korey will be presenting to you later in this session. And in the Glen Kens, we did a quick project with that community. It was called Our Glen Kens, where they created stories of 9 young people making a great life, work, social life, etc., for themselves in what is regarded as a very, very rural part of Dumfries and Galloway. The reality is many community people do not know about these young people in their own community. And those they know about, they assume are the exceptions that prove the rule. That is why projects like Uist, which Tara will talk more about, are so important. So looking at our research, this was on addressing depopulation in Dumfries and Galloway, draws on lots of experience around island demographics and other areas as well. People stay, move into and return to rural places because of other people. Those social connections are critical. And we did this research in conjunction with Amelia at the University of West of Scotland, and she couldn't make it today, but she would have really emphasized that social connections are the critical thing. But those connections don't appear in a vacuum. They are created and maintained in spaces where people regularly meet. And that's why community halls and other public spaces play such a significant role in delivering those connections, as well as vibrant events, services, community identity, and so on. It's important in our research, we looked well beyond just village halls to lots of other public spaces, schools, parks, landscapes, community centres, places of worship, high streets, local business. All of these contribute in their own particular ways. How about social spaces for young people? So public spaces, community halls, need to be seen to be open for all, perhaps especially for young people, given the agenda of this session. Newton Stewart, and I noticed that Lindsay from the Newton Stewart Initiative is on this in this session, is a great example of significant activities for school-age young people in community spaces. The initiative runs a community space right in the heart of the town, and it has activities almost every evening of the week, and most of them providing the young people a free dinner. It's a fantastic collaboration between a community trust and the council staff in Dumfries and Galloway. But there is clearly a cliff edge. So in our research, young adults who had left school reflected on the lack of dedicated spaces where they felt comfortable to meet up with their peers. It's not that there aren't spaces, but they don't often feel comfortable going there. And that makes it really challenging for them to develop and maintain the social relations with their peers. And some reported that those managing community spaces, which they knew about, did not really trust them to use those facilities responsibly. So they didn't really seek to use those spaces. But however important community spaces may be, they're not sufficient to attract young people to stay, return, or settle. Many other factors are involved, as you well know: access to services, resources, and opportunities such as transport, education, and employment opportunities. Although Tara will share with you just how many employment opportunities there are in a tiny community like Uist in the Outer Hebrides, even though the narrative is, oh, there are no jobs here. There are loads of jobs in many of our communities. But services of housing, a particular issue, health services, and so on. And also the experiences and attitudes towards the place where they grew up. And this includes positive relations with the land, positive social and community relations, which I've already mentioned, to create feelings of safety, security, and familiarity, and contribute to that sense of belonging. And within that, family relations are often at the very core of wider community networks. And many young people take their decisions on the basis of their family networks, whether they leave the area or come back or stay. So, some key recommendations. Now, I don't need to tell you these. Listen to and act upon young people's opinions and experiences in designing strategies and actions. Well, we all know that. It would be great if it happened more, but we all know that. Provide educational qualifications and experiences linked to opportunities in the local economy. So often we're educating our young people to leave the community. We need to link them to the many opportunities there are in the local economy. Will vary from community to community. In Dumfries and Galloway, for example, renewable energy is a big one. But a different area may have a completely different set of employment opportunities. But we also included that recommendation of investing in attractive and accessible spaces for young adults beyond school. And once again, I've said some young people don't see these spaces as being for us. And what I'm suggesting, community groups managing these spaces need to work hard to change themselves, not the young people. I've often been asked by committees and boards and say, what can we do to attract young people? And can you help us? And my first point is always, what are you going to do to change yourselves so that you are more open to young people And that's challenging, but I think is absolutely core. I've worked with so many young people over many years in this community. They are hugely active, they're hugely committed. That is not the issue. The issue is that they don't feel comfortable in a lot of these spaces. They don't feel comfortable in boards and so on. And Tara will give you many good examples from Uist. Critical also is changing the narrative for young people. And this is my last slide. Changing the narrative is about highlighting those rural young people who are already making a good life for themselves, even amidst the many challenges. Uist Bjor, Tara will present on. Our Glen Kens was an example in the Glen Kens. So community spaces need to contribute to this changed narrative about rural and island communities, shining a light on young people within communities, recognizing their many contributions and demonstrating that rural and island communities are indeed dynamic, vibrant, resilient, with many opportunities for young people. So after the break, Tara will share the example of the digital platform Uist Bjor, run by young islanders, reaching out to incredibly wide young audiences that is indeed changing the narrative on island life and work in Uist as a really concrete example of what can be done.
Thank you, Thomas.
There we are.
Stop sharing.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you. So obviously in Sheena's absence, we'll move straight on to Tara. And then we'll have the wee Q&A for any kind of think of any questions that you may have for Thomas and for Tara. You can pop your virtual hand up at that point. So Tara, are you there? I was thinking as well, sorry, very quickly, if Sheena doesn't come back, and this obviously not wanting to put anyone on the spot, but if anyone would like to step in at some point and offer just a wee bit about your hall and anything you're doing with young people, if Sheena doesn't come, then it would be great to hear from somebody else, but absolutely no pressure. Have a think if you'd like to. Tara.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Thomas, as well. I will share my screen just now if I'm able to, so I can bring up my presentation. Okay, brilliant. Brilliant. Mativa is Misha Tara, agus Hamia Fudach Anan Uishatua. Hi, everyone. I'm Tara, and I'm delighted to be joining today from just across the causeways from Thomas in North Uist, up in the Outer Hebrides. Uist is a really vibrant and enterprising, resilient community of around 4,500 people across 7 inhabited islands. We have over 20 community halls and spaces across our islands, playing a vital role in encouraging repopulation and really helping people feel integrated and valued and part of our communities. Having grown up in London, I moved up to North Uist in early 2020 with my partner, who was returning home. We met at uni and I followed him home. Living and working in a rural island community, I'm deeply motivated to ensure that young people feel supported, connected and empowered locally, which is why I feel so privileged in the work that I do here. Working as a freelancer locally, I'm proud to work in a small team running the digital platform Uist Bjor, which Thomas introduced earlier. For those that aren't familiar, Uist Bjor is all about celebrating the unique culture and thriving life of our islands, with islanders themselves as the main audience and young people a key priority. We're shifting dated narratives of rural communities being sleepy places to step back in, and instead celebrating Uist as the vibrant place to live, work and thrive that it is, encouraging young people and families to stay, return or make Uist their home. All of our content is delivered through our social media platforms, Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Our insights reveal a monthly viewership of over 100,000 people, with our content valued highly and shared widely by locals, including young people. We post weekly roundups of local job opportunities, in particular highlighting ones that provide training and best accommodate young people. With around 5,000 weekly views on our job posts, we are emphasising Uist as an enterprising place of opportunity. And given that this viewership exceeds Uist's population, we're really seeing an impact across our islands of that. Since starting this, we've received so much positive feedback from the local community saying how helpful it is to have all the jobs in one place. Saves people sifting through notice boards, and also employers have told us just how much it's helped with filling posts. We also try and promote all of the events. There are so many events locally, but we do our best to promote as many of them as we can on our platform, including creating roundups of Easter, summer, and Christmas holidays events. And we try and update the website with weekly occurring events as well. Living in an island community, this kind of resource is really, really useful. I use it all the time myself as a young person living here, and having all the information you need in one place just saves time. Young people can use the platform to keep up to date, from youth clubs and fitness clubs to weekly Kayleys and park runs, the list goes on. 2 new youth clubs have recently started in Uist, and many more are in the planning. And this helps hugely with access for young people, with transport issues bringing barriers for some, which is probably a shared issue amongst rural communities. So many of the events we promote on USPR wouldn't be possible without our fantastic local committees and village halls who all work tirelessly to keep Uist's lights shining brightly. This brings me on to another important part of USPR's work, our stories. We share empowering stories about young people, instilling a sense of pride and belonging for our island communities. This is done both in the form of written articles with professional photography shared on our website, and also engaging videos which we share on our social media. So just on the right here is a quote from one of our stories, which opens on our website with the line, "People make communities." So this story celebrated the achievements of local committee member Archie McCorkadale, who shared his insight on having spent over 30 years on local committees, along with the rewards that have come with it. And also in the story, he really encourages younger Uist local people to get involved themselves. Another example I'll give is a reel that we posted highlighting local fisherman Charlie Monk, who shared his passion for creel fishing, and he promoted the benefits of it as a local career path to young people. We received over 22,000 views for this reel on social media. You can see here that's a TikTok screen grab, getting lots of saves, which is brilliant. It shows retention, and also lots of likes as well amongst young people. And also lots of comments and talk, word of mouth as well. I've had a lot of friends speak to me about our content on USBR and say how useful it is and how empowering it's been to have these stories promoting young people living here and seeing career paths that are available to them. Outside of my work with USPR, I also produce the Hebrides International Film Festival, which is an annual film festival inviting audiences across the Outer Hebrides to enjoy local cinema in rural venues. This is a really unique film festival in that we're not sharing in cinemas, like cinema venues, and instead all of the films are shown in community halls and spaces across the Outer Hebrides. So we're bringing cinema to our island population. We provide free tickets to schools and community groups and make cinema accessible for rural island audiences. I'm also on the board of Thematic Museum and Arts Centre, and I'm the youngest trustee, having just recently joined the board. The board had long been looking for younger members, and having been directly approached by another board member was a winning tactic to get me in. So I don't know if that helps anyone, but I was cornered and it seemed to get me in. I'm also a volunteer with our local agricultural committee. When I first moved up here, I had such a warm welcome from my partner's family, our friends and neighbours from the get-go. But a huge part of feeling integrated here was feeling welcome and part of our committee and included with antics in the hall. It wasn't long before I was asked to help out at different events, from wrapping presents and helping out at children's Christmas parties to judging the veg and garden produce at the agricultural show. With warm welcomes across generations, I quickly felt very integrated and safe and connected, and a huge sense of belonging here. Speaking as a youngish person living in a rural island community, our village halls and community spaces are invaluable in bringing people together, reducing isolation, and nurturing a huge sense of belonging. They're instrumental in ensuring young people feel connected and valued, encouraging them to stay or return home. And this includes being made to feel welcome and heard as local committee members, and hosting events that appeal to young people, or even better, giving them the resources and trust to host these events themselves. USBO would love to continue creating empowering stories about local committees and community halls, recognising the hard work of volunteers and members. Our stories have proven really popular and successful in shifting narratives and emphasising Uist as a vibrant, busy place to young people. And this is something we'd love to help progress, not only in Uist, but also in other rural communities across Scotland. We're also exploring the idea of Uist having a centralised resource for locals to hire community spaces and host their own events. We could compile all of the lists available, the spaces for hire, including rates, and connect locals with an easy booking system, which would help committees with upkeep and funds to heat the space. Committees work very hard to host brilliant events throughout the year, often juggling full-time jobs, family commitments, and volunteering on top of that. And there are, of course, a fantastic array of events on for locals, but more could be done to engage younger demographics, particularly those coming out of school and seeking social places to connect other than local pubs. For instance, a pal of mine was desperately seeking a place to dance the night away to club music. No alcohol, just dance. So we now, a group of friends and me, we hire out a local community hall every few months, and we dance with plenty of neon paint and UV lights, and all chip in to cover the hall costs. And I didn't expect to find that here, yet here we are. Giving locals and young people the resources, encouragement, and ease to host their own events is empowering and instrumental in keeping young people living here, so no one's left behind. Also, schools can play a key role in encouraging young people to attend events outside of school, emphasising ones that will still be open to them when they leave school. Promoting these events that are out there is critical, so it doesn't feel like a bubble has burst for young people when they leave school, and school clubs are no longer, and they're seeking spaces to connect. A key factor in ensuring young people can utilise community spaces best is also better transport, as I touched on earlier. Buses are infrequent and can be unreliable, and that causes really considerable barriers for those that don't have, access to a car, don't drive, or in fuel poverty. You could have the most amazing event on, but if nobody has a mode of transport to get there, your audience is going to reflect that. And finally, I want to stress the value of intergenerationality for the survival and success of committees and community halls, and the importance of succession planning. One local committee has really struggled in recent years due to an ageing committee which has dropped significantly in numbers. Introducing members every few years is key, not only for ensuring that the committee numbers remain strong, but also for introducing diversity in demographics and new and exciting events for the local community. Tactics to get new people on board, young members on board. Well, one could be USBO are hoping to share more stories that celebrate community spaces and committees and reach a wide audience of young people on social media, empowering islanders for the work they're doing, but also inspiring the next generation to keep Uist's lights on. And also, I think encouragement from schools is really important, which can even include committee members visiting schools to provide insight and attract new members. Another way that local committees in Uist have introduced new members successfully is simply by identifying young people and asking them to join. An advantage of a rural island community is that everyone knows each other, and we can use that to our advantage. Thank you very much, Warren Tang, Ahula Dunya, and if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Thank you, Tara. That was excellent. And so we're just going to have a quick, if you want to stop sharing, Tara, we'll just have a very quick opportunity here if anyone has any questions for Thomas or Tara. If you'd like to pop anything in the chat or put your virtual hand up.
I've got a question in the chat from Nick Wright, and thank you everyone for your lovely comments. That's inspiring, Tara. Lots to learn. Thank you. Can I ask what prompted you to get involved and step up locally? Well, it's quite fitting because the job that came up with USBR was actually advertised on USBR, which I used as a young person. So I saw it advertised on their website and social media, and it very much aligned with a lot of my passions. So as a young person living here, I really wanted to help Uist be a fantastic place for young people to live and encourage more families and young people to move here. And also I am a creative myself, so I do a lot of the photos, the videos, and content creation on the social media, and I just come out of art school, so it was a brilliant opportunity to utilize my skills locally and doing something I love as well that had a direct impact where I live.
And I'll just add to that
yeah,
I'll just add that USBR has provided lots of opportunities for young people. While it's managed by CoDel, it's been delivered for the last 4 or 5 years entirely by younger people like Tara. And we've had about 6 or 7 people involved over those years. Some who've returned, some who've settled. One of them has moved off again. It's been a mixture, but the platform works for young people partly because it is run for young people and provides opportunities for those young people directly.
So Alan Robertson, you're next with your hand up. Alan Whiteside, I don't know what's going on with your sound, but if you want to pop your question in the chat, then Amy and I can help facilitate that. So Alan Robertson.
Hey, Nikki, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, that was great presentation from Thomas and Tara, really impressed. I'm just wondering how we take the learning and the experience of the Uist and apply that to other islands who may not be in such a similar place or a strong place with the work. I mean, obviously you've got the Scottish Islands Federation, which represents, Scottish Island communities, but is that a medium to get other island networks involved?
Alan, we didn't quite catch all of that. The sound production wasn't great, but thinking about other islands and whether we could work with them, I think, is your question. And we've been trying to do that. We've worked with the Glenkens in Dumfries and Galloway. We have been looking at working with Harris, where the depopulation challenge is very stark, although the population in Harris is going up at the moment. And we are hoping to work with the Assynt in the northwest of Scotland. I will, because in case others are interested, we'd welcome the opportunity to work with other communities. The impact of USBR does not come from just running a basic community website. We invest a lot in the young people. And so the costs are not just, it's not a program that you can run for 5,000-10,000 a year. It doesn't work like that. What we've struggled with is that we have almost no capital costs. So even though organizations like HIE come to us and say this is brilliant, they're not willing. They have most of their costs are invested in capital, not in revenue, and almost our entire cost of revenue costs primarily, almost entirely paying the young people like Tara to deliver the project really well. And we pay them at decent rates. We pay them £20 an hour, and we've never paid below that. So that's one issue. And then secondly, for example, and I don't want to, disparage particular funders, but we have applied to, say, the big lottery, and they think the project is good, but they don't understand the power of social media for younger audiences. I'm afraid they're a bit locked in the old-fashioned. And after a long conversation with them, one of them said to me, but this is just like a community website. Which is what most communities have. And they put up posts, they share things, they put up information. This is not like a community website. This is a transformative platform which is changing the narrative of how a community sees itself. But not all funders get that. We have had funding from one funder around environmental reels, and those have proved exceptionally impactful. We did a series of environmental reels with some young people, some older people, and we got 250,000 views of that series. It's been absolutely phenomenal. So I hope that helps. We're very open to working with other communities, but not everyone understands the power of what we are doing, even though they like what it looks like.
Thank you, Thomas. So we've just got 2 additional questions, and then we'll need to move on. Lo Duncan, I presume that's Louise, was asking Tara about the design and management of the website, how you funded it. If you wanted to respond to that one, Tara.
Thomas just touched on that, but yeah, that's mostly, so Thomas and Fiona are absolutely fantastic and instrumental in helping ensure that that happens. So we don't have consistent funding, so they work tirelessly to seek that. And yeah, Thomas just touched on that a little bit there, but that's through CoDel. And thank you very much for compliments in the chat. So nice. And hearing that I'm speaking Gaelic. Yeah, I'm learning Gaelic. And also I didn't touch on that hugely because it wasn't long enough to talk about in the 10 minutes, given the focus just specifically on young people. But actually now I'm thinking about it, it is incredibly important that we have a lot of Gaelic on Uist, and also that we shift the image of Gaelic locally as well, and emphasize it as a really fantastic and valuable thing to young people, showing, we've got lots of young people speaking Gaelic on the platform, and promoting it in a really positive light. There are lots of local jobs here where young people can utilize their Gaelic as well. So a real attraction for them to stay and go into jobs where they can utilize their Gaelic coming out of school. So yeah, I'm glad that you commented on that, because I should have said that earlier.
So one final question from Alan, who obviously was having problems with the sound, and I'll just read it out. So this is a question for both Thomas and Tara. Thank you for the presentations. Does the general need to leave for education at a young age, is that a significant issue? I was working for a European project with Finland where people can remotely attend any course from any technical university from anywhere in Finland.
So I'll quickly respond to that. Young people leaving for education is obviously happens a lot. The question will be then whether they return. But to address that, you've given that Finland example. Obviously, here in the Highlands and Islands, we have UHI, and it is possible to access a vast range of courses through UHI locally. Not that many young people choose that option because obviously the experience of university and moving from home is an important experience. I think the key thing, and when our report on the depopulation, well, actually the report is already, we did a rural education review on behalf of the Glenkens community. You can find that on the GCAT or the Glenkens and District Trust website. And structuring education at secondary level, school level in particular, to provide qualifications that go straight into the local economy is really, really important. And we featured some of those young people on USBR. So, for example, we have foundation apprenticeships in marine studies, in health and social care, in crofting, which was designed here. And I know some young people who've done the foundation apprenticeship in health and social care and have moved straight into a job in the local care home. And a very good job it is for them. They really enjoy it and so on. So designing education, rural education, to meet the needs of the local economy is perhaps the most important factor to ensure that those people who would like to stay, not all of them, do have the opportunity to get the skills they need for local employment opportunities. And there's a whole mass of work around that, and examples from Europe, including Finland and so on, that you can draw on from that report. I can give the link if you'd like that. Thank you,
Great.
Eileen.
Thomas, thank you. Right, we're going to move straight on now to our next two speakers, Korey and Hayley. I didn't actually ask who's going first. Who's going first?
Yeah, I can go first. That's fine.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much for having me to speak today. So yeah, I grew up in the Glenkens, then I left for university for maybe like 6-7 years.
Sorry, just jump in, Hayley. Someone has not got their mute. Someone's not muted.
All right, I've got it.
Okay, well done. Sorry, Hayley. Carry on.
That's okay. Yeah, so I left for university and then decided quite recently, within the last kind of year and a half, to move back to the Glenkens. Growing up here, the local village halls were really an important space. I went to nursery there, birthday parties, sports clubs, ceilidhs, art workshops, like you name it. However, since returning, I did feel that the experiences on offer kind of became less. In general, the Glenkens is really fortunate to have, a great range of social and cultural events. However, I do feel these are mainly aimed at, young children and retirees. And this is especially because a lot of events are held during work hours, which really limits who can attend them. As part of the research that I was helping conduct with CoDel and Dumfries and Galloway Council, we found that young people have a really strong need for social spaces that facilitate regular social and cultural connection. These spaces help people feel rooted in place, and I think this feeling of rootedness increases the likelihood that young people will stay in or return to rural areas. These events could be anything, but things like, music, arts, knowledge sharing, and chances for intergenerational learning, things that help reduce isolation while also passing on heritage skills. And I think, there's a chance to pivot these events also into chances to gain professional skills, which maybe lead into local paid experiences and opportunities. I think like a key point here is just trying to create a network of events, opportunities, experiences, which embed people into their local community. Another point that I was going to talk about is kind of the difficulty of forming friendships in rural areas. I've really experienced this as a returner. It's hard to make new friends when you don't have existing contacts. And I think a main reason for this is there are just limited places to physically do this. It often feels like you see a young person in the distance, but you don't have a chance to actually go and speak with them. Historically, pubs, I guess, were the place for this, but there are issues relying solely on these. For example, near Galloway, where I live, we don't have a pub. They're also expensive. Not all young people want to attend events that are focused around drinking alcohol either. But I think, atmosphere is important when it comes to socializing. And, pubs are one of the few spaces that are also intergenerational. So I guess it's important to consider how can we recreate these aspects within community halls. So with that in mind, I just want to talk about an example that I think does exactly this. So the Bodega Social are a collective who are based in Galloway, who started with the question, how do you create the perfect night out in a rural place? So rather than having people travel to cities, the Bodega Social brings events to rural towns and villages throughout Galloway. They kind of change it each time. What do these events look like? Well, I attended the most recent one in New Galloway, which was in December. They provided transport to and from the event with community buses. There was food available, which was prepared in the community hall kitchen. They had live music. I think live music is really important. And people were kind of dancing upstairs. And then downstairs, they had a quieter area for people to enjoy the food, to chat and kind of have a more relaxed time. And the entire hall was just transformed with a few things of lighting and decorations. The event was extremely intergenerational. There was kids as young as 7 there, people as old as 80, but a lot of people in their 20s and 30s as well. And I think this was a real strength of the event. You don't have to take my word for it. It was very popular. It was sold out with a waiting list. I think the capacity for New Galloway Town Hall is about 200 people, and New Galloway itself only has about, just over 300 people. So why does the Bodega Social work? Well, it's not trying to recreate an urban experience. It's designed for and from rural life. There was so much talking with people that you maybe wouldn't get on a night out. You're in the city, you just talk with your friend group, but everybody was talking together. It appeals to younger people by being a nighttime event, but it's open for all. And I really think, as kind of Tara was talking about, the community buses were key. They allowed people from across the region to attend. So I met lots of people from New Galloway there, but also people I'd never seen before who'd come from, over 20 miles away. And there was also some young people who were studying in the cities who'd come down specifically for the event. So I think the Bodega Social highlights an important thread that ran throughout the research, which is that the most inspiring and successful initiatives move away from a kind of deficit mindset. Instead of asking what is missing and what limitations are we facing, instead we shift the question to what do we want our area to look and feel like. And this leads to proactive and innovative strategies that build upon existing community assets. So just to quickly conclude, obviously one event alone is not going to change depopulation events, but I do think village halls have the potential to be leveraged into providing opportunities for socializing, which challenge assumptions about rural life, keep people linked into their community, and also promote rural life as fulfilling. But yeah, thank you.
That was absolutely brilliant, Hayley. Thank you so much. And we can obviously move on to any questions for Hayley on that. But Korey, just for now, we'll go straight on to you.
Hello, yes. So I'm Korey. I live in Thornhill. It's a village in Dumfries and Galloway. And I'm going to be speaking about sort of my lived experience, but I'm going to be referring to a particular case study with another local young person. Talking about some of the issues that they face in terms of engagement and encouragement when engaging with, a village hall, a local village hall. So yeah, underused community spaces. There's a few community spaces in the area, but in particular, there's, maybe one that's not being used to its full potential, or, it's a general thing. But stuff like facilities, funding, and even stuff like the sports equipment just sits unused. And it just feels like a very general sense of a missed opportunity rather than lack of resources. And I think there's also an issue around a sense of gatekeeping in terms of those who are in charge, like access to these facilities seem to be controlled by a small number of people, which just creates this barrier rather than inviting participation from the wider community. It's the same with stuff like the decision making. It seems very closed off, and there seems to be little transparency and responsiveness to the community as well, and what people are sort of calling out for. And like it's been touched on before in previous talks, that young people are looking for that socializing space, and just actual activities to do locally. I can tell from my personal experience, my closest friend is a 2-hour round trip away. So yeah, it's pretty difficult. The things that they do have on locally do seem to be catered to a very narrow demographic. The village hall, as far as I'm aware, has one semi-regular club that is catered to definitely an older demographic, but even within that, it's still quite a niche, narrow demographic. And there seems to be very little effort to market any new activities or broader, especially younger participation. Those who do want to engage seem to be met with a more transactional ethos rather than a supportive one. Obviously engaging in a new space or a community event, you're looking for encouragement. But the village hall's relationship definitely seems to give off a more landlord versus tenant arrangement rather than a community partnership. Yeah, and things like rent, money, rent in the space seems to be prioritized over nurturing community-led initiatives. So I do have a particular example, which I'd like to refer to, of a successful youth-led community event. So there's a local 25-year-old who, for the past 4 years, has independently ran a community event, and it's been very successful. It's consistently sold out, and it attracts the most diverse and multi-generational audience of any other event. But despite its success, the organizers received no assistance, support, guidance, or just general encouragement. Instead, they were like, this is from the no encouragement from the hall's board, I should say. Instead, they faced strict rules, and really, one could argue like trivial rules to adhere to, as well as a 50% increase in booking fees within the last year. And when these things are implemented without any guidance, they feel punitive and very discouraging for a young person taking such a significant role in a community-led event. And it's ultimately left them feeling unmotivated and undervalued. I'm not sure initially if you can dissect it and understand the reason behind it, but I speculated, obviously, generalizations or presumptions in terms of people looking at different age, like older people like younger people, and vice versa. But I can tell you, no one expects reduced responsibility or a rule-free use of these spaces. What is being asked for is just a basic level of encouragement, support, and collaboration. But it's difficult when, like I said, there's an authority versus public dynamic almost. With the current relationship feeling very much, like I said, like landlord and tenant, it's very discouraging. And it creates a frustration, especially amongst young people, or those wanting to engage in general. There is a slight pattern of this sort of control. There's a similar example about the village notice board. It's seemingly controlled by a single individual, and there's very rigid rules. It's just this general lack of encouragement with these sort of strict rules and regulations. But all these things are cumulative barriers that add to a general sense of exclusion and really emphasizes that divide of those in charge and the users. And obviously this has an impact on younger people as they experience a feeling of feeling unwelcome in their own community spaces, and it risks disengagement altogether. And of course, it could lead to them, feeling what's the point in, putting myself out there and trying to engage and create something out of nothing in my local area. I don't think I can really say anything new about it. I mean, I know everything I've said has been quite negative, but I'm just trying to illustrate some of the issues and the barriers around a young person trying to, like I said, it's not about, we're not trying to remove anybody, we're trying to include everybody. We're trying to, carry on traditions through inclusivity. But yeah, in terms of things that need to change, obviously I can always say that community boards need to be less exclusive and more representative. Village halls, they shouldn't be seen as business ventures. and they need to be more focusing on community partnership and you know, at the end of the day, they're a shared civic space. And if we want younger people to feel more involved, then they have to feel supported and they have to be motivated and encouraged, and not like they're coming up against an immovable, outdated system. Um, yeah, I think I don't know if that's my 5 minutes up, but hopefully I've not depressed everybody. But I think I might just leave it there. But thank you very much for listening.
That's really useful, Korey. Thank you. There's a question actually. Someone asked if you could expand a wee bit on the successful event that was run, which
Yeah,
you
so
mentioned.
yeah, a successful event was a village Cayley. I'm just trying to see if I can see the chat.
They just said, "Well, Korey, what was the successful event?"
Oh, right, okay, right. Yeah, it was a Cayley, a village Cayley, and it's the, as far as I'm aware, the only thing that really sells out each time and brings in such a mix of people. Because it's I've attended, and it's funny when you go, it's like I didn't realize these people were here. I didn't realize there were so many young people around. But yeah, it was Kaylee.
And you've had a comment just before we move on to our final speaker, Sam. A comment from Debbie saying, "This is so important to hear from Korey. Thank you for sharing and for challenging us." So it's great.
No worries. Thank you very much.
So we'll move on to questions at the end. But just bring in our final speaker, Sam. If you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
So, my name is Samrat, and I'm a digital coordinator for the Rural Social Enterprise Hub at Inspirabla. We are based in Campbelltown, and at Rural Social Enterprise Hub, we support a network of over 700 members, mostly people running social enterprises across rural Scotland. We facilitate events such as learning exchanges, Zen meetings, and trainings for rural social enterprises. So, since Inspirabla is based in rural Scotland, I am here to share a little bit of how we involve young people in our work from a rural perspective. But most of the things that I was going to say here were discussed earlier in the presentation, so I'll just try to keep it short. So, to understand what we do, we first need to look at the challenges rural areas face. So, we know that the rural community organizations, they usually start because of a market failure. So, they start in response to a market failure, whether it's a small island needing a fuel pump or a village trying to save its local hull. These organizations step forward to provide essential services that simply would not exist otherwise. So we're also battling rural depopulation. Young people often leave for university or better jobs and they don't come back, which leads to another issue, which is rapidly aging population. In fact, the number of people who are over 65 has jumped to 38 percentage recently. And when we ask about why people are leaving for the city, usually comes down to three things: jobs, housing, and transport. So what does this mean for a rural social enterprise? So if we want to keep the young people in our communities, we have to give them a reason to stay. So engaging them is not just a nice thing to do, it is very essential. So the very first thing to do is create more opportunities for them. So bringing a young person onto your team or board brings fresh ideas and different perspective. By giving them a platform to build their skills and confidence, we are not just filling a job, we are training the next generation of leaders. And this ensures that these vital community services can keep running long after the current leaders retire. And at Inspiralba, over 60% of our staff members are under 30, and most of them joined us before they were 25. And we use structured programs like Spark Your Purpose and wage-based placements. And we do this by collaborating with other organizations within the third sector. And we also rely heavily on graduate apprenticeships and graduate placements. And I actually joined Inspirabla 2 years ago as an apprentice myself, and my manager Amy, who is also here, she started as an apprentice 4 years ago. And we also encourage our team members to join voluntary boards to get involved in governance. For example, Amy is on the board of Scottish Rural Action, and one of our apprentices, Lena, she sits on the board of the Inspiralba, and there's another team member, Jamie, she's on the board of Pre-Loved to Reloved. So that's our team just there. It's not the most updated picture, but our strategy boils down into 3 simple points. So the first one is long-term engagement. We focus on building long-term relationships rather than engaging with them just for once and leaving them. And we also follow a tailored approach. So the Spark Your Purpose program, we help young people to find what they are actually interested in and work around them. And we also make sure that there are tangible rewards like certifications and trainings that can help them grow in a job. So this is like a cycle. By doing this, we are not only engaging with young people, we are also helping to build capacity within the rural communities so that young people can step up into leadership roles, making sure that our rural services are set for the future. And we also have some resources available on the Rural SC app on involving young people. I'll just pop some links into the chat. I hope that was helpful, and thanks for listening.
Thanks very much, Sam, and lots of great comments coming through in the chat. I'm not going to read out all of them, but I encourage our speakers to have a read through them because, yeah, there's just some really interesting feedback there. And just take this opportunity to thank all of our speakers today. I think hopefully you found you got some good insights and some quite honest things coming through from them. So now really we have sort of just over 20 minutes for any comments, questions. If anyone would like to talk a little bit about what they do in their village hall, since obviously we haven't got Sheena here today, unfortunately, to speak about Strathclyde Youth Drama. Would anyone else like to put their hand up and tell us a bit about what they're doing to engage young people? Or if anyone has any questions. So no one put their hand up.
Oh, Tony, I think you got your hand up.
Someone.
Hello.
Hi, Tony. Yeah.
The hall in Port William, we're reasonably good in that we have about 50 uses of our hall for different groups per month, which is quite good. The main problem is getting young people involved. Basically, the only young group we've got is toddlers. All the groups around our area seem to be, not being cheeky, older folk, such as myself. We want young people to join in, but it's trying to get them. One other problem is incomers coming to live are not made to feel welcome. We've got a couple come in and they have started something very well in Port William, but once again, it's just old people. The big problem is getting young people involved.
Thank you, Tony. Would any Korey or Hayley or Tara, would you like to respond on that? Any suggestions? Put you on the spot to encourage younger folk to get involved. Sorry, Tony, where did you say you were based?
At Port William and
Fort William.
Yeah, Port William and Wigtonshire.
Mm-hmm.
Not Fort William.
Oh,
Port
William, right?
Port William.
Okay. So would anyone like to respond on that particular point?
I can touch briefly on it. I think similar to some of the things that we've discussed today, it seems to be a common theme and also popping up in the chat as well. Introducing, new committee members and ensuring that there's a diverse committee, intergenerational, and you have that demographic, that younger demographic in there. Also, for example, you mentioned incomers. There might be one incomer in the committee or a few incomers as well. Obviously, lots of locals. Having different demographics that reflect a place is important to ensure, I think, that everyone in that place feels welcome and feels supported. So yeah, I would probably say it's down to committees and organizations to ensure that all the demographics are covered, so that everyone can be best supported. I hope that somewhat answers your question, but anyone else feel free to jump in.
Thanks, Tara. I just noticed a question in the chat. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Fatima, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question, or I can read it out?
Hi there. I might be having some connection issues, so I'm not sure how clear my voice will be coming through. But my question was just kind of around the initial engagement of young people and any advice that anybody might have on how to maybe keep these young people present, keep them regularly engaged in facilities and services, especially when it may be so easy for young people to divert back to their technology. If anyone has any advice, thank you.
Anyone like to come in on that one? Korey, I know you don't. You actually take active breaks away from technology, don't you? So
Yeah, I try. It's difficult. I'd love to sort of give a solution, but I think obviously not every young person is the same. You can't generalize like that. But for myself, I want to engage. That's just the way I am. I have sentimental value to where I live, and I think I'm old enough that I've seen the decline, it feels like, from when I was younger. In terms of like just the real blend and the mixture of everyone, the sense of community, I suppose. I don't, yeah, I can't think of in terms of solutions, but it's like what Tara was saying earlier about the having that real sense of representation on the boards, and folk that are in charge almost. When young people see other young people, that's what's enticing. It's quite intimidating to come into a space where you're maybe the only young person there, or just there's just that relatability in that sense. But yeah, it's a tough one. Not too sure.
Mia, I just noticed. Do you want to come in? I just noticed you put something in the chat just there. You there, Mia? Put Mia on the spot. I love putting Mia on the spot.
Well, I work with Nikki, so I kind of did see it coming.
You deserve to be put on the spot.
Hi everyone, I'm Mia. I live on Lismore, North Argyll. And I work with SRA, same place as Nikki, on things including the Rural Youth Action Network, where we kind of linked up and amplified groups of young people, rural and island young people, aged 16 to 30, across Scotland, through different platforms. Yeah, so I kind of said if anyone here is interested in appealing to a different demographic, which might of course be young people, because that's what we're talking about here today, but it might also be people from different backgrounds, but different diversities, different abilities. I think the first thing to really do is, first to be honest within your existing committee of saying there is a gap, and we are trying our best, but there is a gap. And secondly, to say, right, we need to talk to them because clearly we're not doing something right and we're not connecting with them. So how we need to take that first step. It's on us to take that first step and to reach out to them and say, right, what are we doing? What should we be doing differently, to connect with you guys? So reach out and definitely don't put it as a multiple choice question of saying, right, we've heard young people like Kaylee's. So if we do here's an option of a Kaylee or an agricultural show. And if you say you like a Kaylee, then we expect you to come. Like you can't use that sort of structure. You have to keep it open and you have to say, what interests you? What do you want to see differently? What would make you come to our village hall or participate in our committee or a group or a development trust or whatnot? Yeah, so keep it open, do your outreach, keep it open-ended, and don't assume you know what the answer is. I'm facilitating a group of young people here in North Argyll and gave them 25, we identified 25 priorities, had them basically rank what the priorities were. And honestly, what they ranked as the top 6, 7, 8 priorities were completely different than what I'd expected, and completely different than what somebody in Aberdeenshire who we'd done the same exercise for, had responded. And then we could, keep developing from there, and narrow it down. And now they're working on some projects that honestly no one in the room and from any of the funders, from any of the organizers could have seen coming. But that's what spoke to the young people, and they're doing an incredible job and being very, very engaged. So yeah, keep it open-ended. Don't do the whole multiple choice and then expect that will give you the right answer. Keep it open-ended, and yeah, do that first step, do that outreach in the first instance. Because if you're on that community committee, if you're in that community group, if you're in that village space, you do have, as Korey was saying, you do have kind of that power. There is a power dynamic, and so it's up to you to make that first step and do that outreach and do it in a really genuine way where you will be able to listen and follow up on what that missing demographic is saying.
Thank you, Mia. That's really sound advice. Perhaps you'd like to share your email in the chat, because I'm sure your various people would love to link up with you and the work that you're doing. There's a lady with her hand up. Sorry, I didn't. I don't know what your first name is. It says TS. Beale?
Yep. TS is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think actually Mia covered a lot of what I was going to say, but I think so I'm from Protests and Suffragettes. We're an organization based in Glasgow, but working nationally. And I stay in Dumfries and Galloway. So I know Korey. Hey, Korey. And I think it's been very inspiring. So thank you everyone for the presentations. I think there's a lot of food for thought, but I really wanted to, I put it in the chat, but I just really wanted to say how helpful and inspiring it is to hear from young people who are actually working in these ways in these communities. So thank you for all the presentations, but also to Korey for really being honest. I think about what it is. Sorry. Boots on the ground experience as a young person trying to step up and organize things, and like the levels and layers of frustration. So I think everyone in a position to organize things, and I include myself in that, really just needs to like take it a little bit on the chin and think like, how am I working? How am I personally, my organization, my week, my monthly plan? How am I, if I'm serious about engaging with young people, how am I working to reach out to those young people? And what are the kind of robust systems and structures that I'm putting in place to try to go where those folks are? It's like engaging with other communities as well. You have to go where they are. You've got to listen and ask them what they'd like, exactly what Mia was saying. And you need to also not put like a stopwatch on that conversation. I think that's the other thing. It's about commitment, time, and presence. And if you really want to engage with young people, then it's just important that you go where they are and you demonstrate commitment over time, that you are accessible to them, that your door is open, you consistently invite them in, you figure out how to make your board meetings not so boring that nobody wants to come. Sorry. Anyway, I really wanted to, I think the issue of gatekeeping is huge. And I mean that in a broad sense. We work in urban environments, and it's the same. It's the same in urban communities in terms of young people feeling like they need to prove that they're worthy, that they need to prove they're not going to do something that they're not supposed to, where other demographics don't have those barriers. Thank you for. this. It's very, very helpful and really inspiring and interesting. A lot of food for thought.
Thank you. Excellent comment. Sorry, what was your name? I didn't actually catch your name.
So my Sunday name is Tara, but I go by T.S. Bell, and I'm from Protests and Suffragettes.
Great, thank you. So Amy, I don't know whether you've been monitoring the chat. I just picked up a question. Sorry if I've missed anyone's questions. Please feel free to jump in and put your hand up and jump in. But there was one from Katrina Lovey. Do you want to unmute yourself, or I can read it out?
Yeah, it's okay. Happy to ask the question. So it was really just to find out if anybody had experience of setting up a co-working hub, and what challenges or benefits did they find from that. And so we're looking into this for Logie Colston Hall, which we're in southwest Aberdeenshire, and I think we've been quite inspired by what's going on in Ireland in terms of there's a lot of government back in there to set up a network of connected hubs where folk can go and get good quality internet connections. But I think the main benefit, as I think Thomas has said underneath, is just letting folk get to know each other in that kind of informal setting and come and go as they can. So we've just recently got a wee bit of funding through the Community's Mental Health and Wellbeing Fund to kind of get one of the spaces that's less well used in our hall kind of set up. In fact, we've already got some kind of office furniture and had a IKEA furniture assembly day, which was actually quite a lot of fun and brought in some young folk in and of itself. So we're hoping that this will just be an opportunity for folk to use a space. It doesn't have to be for work necessarily. It can just be if you're wanting to catch up in life admin and, as I say, get a warm space that's got decent kind of internet connection. So yeah, just be interested if anybody else has been involved in that or would be interested in that. So thanks.
Katrina, I'll jump in on that one. Have you spoken to Helen Denny at all from Connected Hubs?
I've just recently been cyber introduced to Helen, so yes, I will get in touch with Helen, and also spoken with one of your, I think, former colleagues, Christine. So
yeah, Christine,
had a really good conversation with Christine, who's
my understanding with what Helen's doing is kind of very much based on the Irish model. The challenge I see is that's kind of at the moment very kind of focused on established work hubs, whereas actually, I live in Tinnaburk and I see that there would be a need for kind of more rural communities to kind of utilize community spaces, village halls, and other spaces. But how do you kind of start the process? And I think there's work to be done to help those kind of more deeply rural areas to get set up. So I'd be very keen, Katrina, to have a discussion about what you're doing if you've been tapping into funding and how you're doing it.
Surely.
Great to have that conversation. Alan, do you have a comment on that one?
Yeah, in terms of support for looking at opening or creating a new community hub, there's community-led local development funding. There'll be a new tranche of funding for financial year 26-27, and that'll be announced in the next couple of months, I would think, at the latest, subject to budgetary approval. So that'll be money that local community groups can bid into through their local action groups, and it's primarily going to be revenue as opposed to capital this year. So it could be used for things like feasibility studies or surveys of potentially structures or buildings that may be suitable for hubs, but feasibility studies, that kind of thing. But it'd be kind of like first foot forward, really, in terms of it could be used for hiring of consultants, etc., or subject matter specialists in terms of community spaces and networking hubs. So that's a potential funding route for you for that kind of initial steps.
Thanks, Alan. And one thing to say as well, the March Community Spaces meetup is during Village Halls Week, as I said before, and the overarching theme of Village Halls Week is health and well-being. Now, the kind of the whole thing that remote workers who predominantly work in their homes could actually get out into the community and work, in a co-working space could have a real benefit to people. So that could be one of the topics that we could explore through one of the meetups. So if you complete the survey, I'll put the link in the chat earlier if you'd like to vote for that one, then please do. So, any other questions, Amy? Have you picked up on anything? There's one about the Saltire Awards, actually. Sorry,
Yeah.
Iona?
I think she's saying she's in a loud office, so can't
Okay.
unmute. But there has been answers to that underneath, so I don't know if that's been answered sufficiently.
So, Mia, do you just raise your hand? Yep.
Yeah, hi. Just about the Saltire Awards. Yes, 100% has worked for some, especially some of the young adults who might still be thinking about university or further education. I have heard feedback from, kind of older young people, maybe in their mid-20s, maybe in their late 20s or over the 30s, um, who do who would rather honestly have that time and energy invested into quote unquote real leadership courses. So I think what is called SEO, I think that's what they are. They do, rural leadership courses. A scan might do some, facilitation courses, things like that, where the young people feel that they're not just being, considered like, oh, they'll be the leaders of tomorrow, but actually they are fully acknowledged that they are fully capable. They have the expertise and the lived experience and the energy, and they can be considered by their community to be the leaders of today. And they're not just training or, yeah. So essentially kind of a mix, a really good question. Depends on your, kind of the demographic. I have heard very mixed things from a mixed range of young people. Some of them, would love to just do a mountain leader first aid training course. Others, things that actually really help them build those qualifications as, helpful members of their community today. So if you're offering, kind of offering those training or those courses, maybe once again, your first thing can kind of be go to those people and say, what are you interested in? And instead of assuming, well, this is what youth workers recommend or what we assume young people would want. Because often the responses is really, really broad, in my experience. But yeah, Hayley, Tara, any of the others.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mia. Francis, got your hand up.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I wanted to share, it's not a perfect example. I live in Unst in Shetland, and we have a festival for a week in the summer. So we had two young people who were going to put on a party bus for our festival. Some of the older committee were a bit concerned, but the decision was taken to support them. And it's now run for 2 years very successfully. The first year, some of the older committee were possibly a bit concerned, but they helped and it worked. And the second year, they were able to refine it and then look at the economics of it. So learning for the young people. So it was a really nice example, but it is a voluntary committee, so not perfect. I'm not sure that every young person that's joined that committee has had that experience. So I think thank you very much to Korey, because lots of really good things to reflect on there. The second thing I was thinking is often like committees are volunteers and they're tired and they're struggling. So some of the reasons that they're being negative to young people, like they might be struggling because their expenses have gone up so much and they've suddenly put up the cost. But that lack of trust and collaboration that Korey was speaking about is probably preventing the committees going forward to a better solution. So it was a really well made point, I think, because how can young people help if they don't know what the issues are?
Yeah, brilliant points there. Korey, did you want to respond there or?
Yeah, I think it sort of just ties into this idea that I had that, these sort of set in their ways, community boards, it's like they don't see this engagement as an investment. They sort of look at it as like a cost, which I think kind of, yeah, is something that's really hard to shift when you have no sort of influence from the outside. Yeah, I don't know if that ties in.
A lot of food for thought.
Yeah.
So sadly reaching the end of the session. I think we could probably go on, but a few more comments coming through in the chat. Are there any last questions that anyone would like to ask, or any final comments to make? As I said before, I'm very happy to kind of direct any questions after the event. I've put my email into the chat, so just get in touch. But would anyone like to make any closing comments? Okay, then, well, just yeah, thank you everybody so much for coming. It was absolutely brilliant, and hopefully you all agree it's really useful discussions. If I could just hold on to the speakers and to Amy for just a few minutes. But yeah, thank you everybody else, and have a lovely day.
Thanks everyone. We're going to send out the presentations as well, and some of the notes and the links that were shared in the chat with everyone over the next couple of days.
And we'll resend the survey as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciated everyone coming along today.
I was going to say there are actually a lot of useful things coming through in the chat, so we probably need to get some of those comments in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.